When they go into a robot, it's like, well, you pretty much can imagine a billion robots, and maybe we'll pay $200 a month for a robot, and the robot will just pretty much do everything. And so the question is, do you want someone to do everything, to cook, to clean, to get trash? Would you like a self-driving car? Of course. We're on the verge of these perfect products, right? That, like, we'll get to the point where we're like, you used to actually have an oven that burned things? Like what? Well, it was stupid? Yeah, it was too stupid to know it was going to burn them. Huh? Why didn't you just put intelligence into the appliance? Right? Why would you ever have an intelligent appliance, right? At this point, when it gets exponentially cheaper. We used to get in traffic accidents, right? Like the big reveal, right? The big inversion is when people realize that the self-driving cars are safer than the person-driven cars, right? It's like, you used to make mistakes. You know, the irony, of course, is now when you send a message to someone, if you want to prove that it came from you, you have to actually put errors in it. Right? If you put errors in it, I believe you typed it. You know, the AI can draft the thing as though it had a PhD in English and it had 20 years experience as a copy editor. And so we're reaching this point where lack of effectiveness is just laziness. Right? If you wrote something which wasn't perfect, it's because you're lazy, not because you're not perfect. I mean, the AIs create perfect documents. They do perfect research. The robots will do any amount of work. And I think Elon makes this point, which is we're about to trip over an age of abundance.
Do you believe that's true? What does that say about Bitcoin? Because I'm looking at some of the quotes here that Elon said about the age of abundance. He says, in the future, where anyone can have anything, you no longer need money as a database for labor allocation. If AI and robotics are big enough to satisfy all human needs, then the relevance of money declines rapidly. I'm not sure we will have it. If you are stranded on a desert island with $1 trillion, it will be pointless because there is no labor to allocate. In a benign scenario, we will have any products or any services that they want. Checks issued by federal governments is the best way to deal with unemployment caused by AI/robotics. Because AI and robotics will produce goods and services far in excess of the increase in money supply, so there will be no inflation. Work will become optional. Kind of like playing sports or a video game. You can go to the store and buy vegetables, or you can go and grow them in your backyard because you like growing them. That's what work will be like. AI and robotics are going to make so much stuff and provide so many services that they will actually run out of things to do for the humans. Money is fundamentally information. The true constraints of the future won't be financial. They'll be energy and mass.
He's half right. I agree with part of what he says. That is, consumer goods, consumables, utilitarian goods will become abundant. But there are always going to be scarce, desirable goods that will not become abundant. And I think he overstates the case. Money will still be valuable. Wealth will still be valuable. But I'll give you an example. Henry VIII didn't have clean water, did not have heat, did not have cooling. These things the King of England did not have. And technology gave all these things to the middle class. And so he lived in the middle class, and have their appendix out. Henry VIII didn't have dental crowns. He didn't have x-rays. So you get modern medical care. You know, the infant mortality rate has plunged. Life is safer. Clean water, clean air, right? Clean food. And technology gave them to us. We stamp out infinite Coca-Cola, infinite Hershey's bars, ice cream, right? Running water. Right? So all of those things have been given to the middle class, the working class. Not everyone, but everybody doesn't get a Hamptons house. Everybody doesn't get their own private jet, their own private yacht. So what happened with the explosion of affluence? Massive utilitarian entitlement, lots of cars, but you know, not because everybody gets a car, but how many people get a Porsche? What happens with humanity is we always invent the luxury car. We come up with a trophy asset. And again...
But most people don't actually need that. They want to be able to feed their family and not have to worry about bills. So all of those people, I'm saying that those people are going to be, they're not going to have to worry.
I'm saying that if your aspiration is a good life, if you want infinite food, infinite energy, infinite education, infinite entertainment, right? My point is, in theory, right, why does money matter today? Because everybody needs and water. Because you want to buy something more than water. Water is a proletarian drink.
What does that mean?
It means that if you go to a restaurant you can't afford anything else, you ask for a cup of water, right? And then if you have some more money, you get yourself a Coca-Cola or a soft drink that costs $5. But if you have more money, you buy yourself a vodka. And then if you have more money, you buy yourself a specialty high-end tequila. And eventually people find a way to spend $38 on a drink. And, you know, in New York City, you know, you can see that everywhere. Why do we go to restaurants and pay $300 to eat at a restaurant? Because you can actually feed yourself on $3 a day. And the answer is, there's always going to be a hierarchy of affluence, and people are going to find things to aspire to that will be more than the utilitarian mean that everybody gets. If I give you universal health care, people want private health care. If I give everybody a house, someone's going to want a house twice as big. Everybody's always going to have a reason to want something more.
Because we're status-oriented animals.
That's the cynical way to look at it. But the other way to look at it is, I wanted to be sitting on a mountain peak skiing, but not that mountain peak, because the snow's not good on that mountain peak this week.
And it's too busy on this one.
Yeah, and that was too crowded. You know, it's like, there's always going to be some exclusivity. You know, there's going to be a quest. So I think that money's not going away. I think it's pretty obvious if you look around you that people still need money. It is true that the basic needs in life, basic transportation, basic energy, basic health care, all of those things can be manufactured in quantity and they'll get
15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.
Let's get into the Senate lockdown today, because all of this is centered around clarity. Of course, last week was huge today, and this week was huge. There's a reason I keep talking about them. Uphold makes it incredibly easy to bridge the gap between your portfolio and the real world. This has not been done before. Their Uphold debit card is the best example of that. It lets you spend your crypto or your cash anywhere Visa is accepted, all while earning 4% back in XRP on every purchase. It's the easiest way to stack rewards on your daily spending. Download the Uphold app for more and get started. The first thing I want to do is lead off with a clip from Mike Novogratz, and then we'll bring in our guests. Take a look.
I think the Clarity Act is going to pass. I do. And I know right now it doesn't feel like it's all just a small compromise on ethics. And I think that ethics compromise is Reagan Riley, where they said the state AGs can't sue Congress and the president, they can sue
All right, so
Hey, thanks for having me this afternoon.
So you are absolutely very busy this week.
Yes.
And a lot is happening. When you look at the current situation as it is right now with the Senate, the combined bill, of course, now we see all sorts of new copy and new text. First of all, what was your initial take on where the Clarity Act stands as it is right now?
I think it's in a great spot. It's right where we want it to be to get Senate consideration and honestly passage as well. I think that the players are in the room making they're negotiating, they're making the decisions that need to be made to get this across the finish line. So we're in striking distance, and I think we will see this get done and out of the Senate very soon.
Within striking distance, but the scenario and the concern that has been within the industry has been able to get to that 60 votes. And there's been a handful of senators that have seemed to kind of maybe cross the line here. Is there anybody specific that we should be watching for that could signal that this is a no?
I've been very involved on the Democrat side, especially with the agriculture tax. A while ago, Senator Ellsworth, and very involved, working very hard on a number of negotiations, and are people who said they'd like to get to yes on this. They'd like to be able to support this. So keep an eye on those senators.
All right, so you have said 10 days right now, 5 hours, okay? You tell me, can this be done?
Certainly can get past the Senate. It does get a little tricky because the House went out of session, and this bill does go back to the House of Representatives because the Senate made changes. So we'll have to just keep pushing through Congress's August recess and get the House to take up the Senate passed bill as soon as they get back. But I have no doubt we can get this through the Senate this, next couple of days, or at least in the week, and tee up for the House remains.
Okay, so you have
I've seen congressional recesses canceled before, and that is certainly something that has happened, especially when you have must-pass pieces of legislation that need to get done. Sometimes when you put that kind of pressure on the senators, it's what gets them to the table to kind of finalize negotiations so that you can get 60 votes. I do think there's a little bit in the Senate. I think that we're able to get some of these last-minute negotiations nailed down. And I think it's a lot easier to get to 60 votes, but I know save is very important to the president, so we'll be watching that as well. But I feel very good about the clarity that's going to be in this lockdown.
interesting. So, the guy that has been on our show before, and of course, James over had a lot of you guys are following out there on Twitter. Right here, the Trump does to cancel the Senate recess. And this, of course, would get things rolling for potentially the Save America Act, but primarily what we're interested in the Clarity Act, with getting to that 60 votes. And I think if the fact that it can be done, and what you're saying is that you've seen it done before, that's a good possibility. Paint out the next few steps. Let's assume that we do get clarity passed. The Senate comes together, we get this done. Does it have to go back to the House to get a rubber stamp? What's the process at that point?
Yeah, it definitely has to go back to the House. I certainly wouldn't say it's a rubber stamp because this language has changed significantly from what the House sent over. So there will be, additional education and efforts to make sure that the House is comfortable with this bill so they can get it passed. And then once the House passes the Senate version, it goes straight to the president's desk. The Senate used the House bill number, and that allows them to change the text, put in the Senate text, and send it back over to the House for one vote versus having a conference committee between two bills.
Provisions, which is really the biggest concession coming out of the White House so far. But this is something that I'm not aware of, and that is the motion to proceed is expected today or tomorrow with the possibility of a floor vote this week. What is this motion to proceed? Is that just something saying, hey, yeah, it goes to the floor?
Yeah, it's a kind of procedural piece of the puzzle that you have to do to get legislation heading on the floor. So we're expecting the majority leader to make a motion to proceed. That is generally subject to cloture. So usually we vote by a cloture, and then that usually sets up a vote in a couple of days. There are some interesting different circumstances this week with the funeral arrangements for former Senator Lindsey Graham, but we do think they still can get clarity this week.
Okay, so getting clarity this week, you look at the potential over on Poly Market right now, it's on a flat line and has been holding there for most of the day, and yesterday, of course, over the weekend, but holding at 38%. This seems very low. This is what I'm hearing from many of the people who have been on our show over the last week, and including yourself.
Those who are really familiar with the procedures, how these efforts come together, kind of the interaction of staff and senators that lead up to a major agreement and a major legislation getting done, all that's in place. We're seeing it, we're feeling it, and I think it's really hard to know that from the outside. There's a lot going on that you don't see. You see the press releases where Democrats are explaining their language, but that's just kind of a negotiation tactic. Behind the scenes, they are actually working together, trying to get to a good place on language. And I really do think there are a number of Democrat senators who do want to get to yes.
So are you optimistically skeptical? Because I have seen so many I look at that and you consider starting to shift, so law enforcement now starting to look like, hey, no, we support this.
So they're quiet publicly, but we're seeing a lot of behind-the-scenes activity. There's a lot of kind of myth versus fact sheets out there, talking points that we're getting a hold of from the banks, and so they are working their talking points. They are going in and meeting with senators. They are having their community banks call in. The good news is those talking points are very easy for us to counter. They tend to be kind of half-truths or at least misinformed, and we're able to go in kind of in behind the banks and really help educate the lawmakers and their staff as to what it really does do. I think the other piece of this is interesting is with the yield debate and kind of those negotiations. Honestly, the banks lost some credibility. A lot was given up by crypto on the yield deal. We were all at the table. We were there in good faith, and had the banks stand up for all of those negotiations. Really, I think a number of our offices, just because of how hard they had worked to get to an agreement.
Well, then, let's be clear. You've got layers that have already started to implement a lot of blockchain technology, so rightly so, they are kind of going that direction. Further behind for this industry for this advancement in tech.
I think that's exactly the case here. This bill is going to benefit us and crypto industry equally. This is going to give the banks a lot of opportunity to, access new technology, to implement faster movement of money into the system. I expect most of the large banks to actually, be in this industry, be in crypto fully, supportive of it. I just think that they're maybe a little bit behind technologically, and some of this is a effort to kind of slow down the progress. But I think at the end of the day, this bill is going to benefit them as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, speaking of those who it could benefit, I want to play a clip for you because it's really kind of boiling down to two sectors in the banking industry. Let me play this clip.